40. Past fragment, Mehran's last stand. Ruins of Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, October 2014. Constructed inside a valley surrounded by 5 mountains, Sarajevo had once been a beautiful place. A perfect mix of small, pastoral houses and tall modern buildings, the city had housed events such as the 1984 Winter Olympic Games, survived the Yugoslavian Wars, and thrived in the aftermath. But that was long ago. Today, Sarajevo was a vision of hell. A steel graveyard ruled by a madman, its skies dark even during the brightest days. Only decaying ruins remained of the old city, consumed by a noxious purple cloud. The other buildings were factories, weapon development facilities, turrets, and fearsome towers of black steel. The tallest structure was Mehran's fortress located in Sarajevo's center, an infinity symbol-shaped fusion between a military base and a particle accelerator. Finally, pylons on the valley's mountains projected a red force field around the city, one powerful enough to shrug off NATO's ICBMs. This miasma covering the city was a bioplague created to kill humans, leaving only machines unharmed. Robots prowled the streets, from futuristic automated tanks to humanoid, 2 meters tall cyclops, while flying drones occupied the skies. Some of these machines were cyborgs, half-rotten corpses partly reanimated with tech when Mehran ran out of rare ore. The machine army stood there, organized into defensive formations, waiting for the battle to start without wasting any ounce of energy. Even the river Miljacka which once crossed the city had been dried up. When he looked at this tragedy from the heavens above, Leonard Hargraves could only feel sadness. The genome wars had started here 9 years ago, and one way or another, they would end today. Even long after he caused the end of the world, Mehran remained a mystery. Pythia pieced together that he was a survivor of the Bosnian genocide and the siege of Sarajevo in the mid-90s, an electric engineer by trade. His first act upon gaining his elixir had been a terrorist attack against the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia for its perceived softness on war criminals, before escalating to waging war on Serbia. Things quickly erupted into a European conflict, and then finally a nuclear exchange. Mehran had spent the entirety of the genome wars bunkering in Sarajevo, letting his machines and genome allies fight for him. The anti-Mehran front had slowly destroyed his major bases and killed his lieutenants over the last 6 years, and today, they finally gathered enough heroes to end the conflict once and for all. "We're ready?" Leo spoke. "Yes." The voice of Alice Martel, alias Pythia, answered through telepathy. Shining Knight and Nidhogg's groups are in position. While he was proud to fight alongside the Shining Knight, Nidhogg's involvement left a sour taste in Leo's mouth. Though he kept to his territory and didn't cause troubles unless provoked, that man was a villain, plain and simple. His followers had taken over a large part of Denmark and allowed their geniuses to run some questionable medical experiments there. Unfortunately, the anti-Mehran front couldn't take Sarajevo without assistance, and the war had called for moral compromises. Nidhogg was willing to help when so many wouldn't, even crossing half a continent to offer support. While he acted out of self-preservation, this green genome understood Mehran was an existential threat to all of mankind, and that he had to be stopped at all costs. So while they might end up enemies one day, Leo would cut him some slack and they would part ways amicably. The living sun gave one last glance at the Iron City from his current high altitude before flying back to base at the speed of a fighter jet. Leonard's human body had been transmuted into a living star, a mass of solar plasma only held together by a heart core and his own gravitational forces. Though he didn't age in his sun form, the genome usually returned to his human self while not on missions, as he felt less like himself the longer he stayed transformed. His thoughts changed from human to that of a star, wishing to burn bright and illuminate the cosmos. It was a constant mental effort for Leo to contain his radiance and avoid burning everything around him. Sometimes, he felt like he lived in a world of matchboxes. Today would be a rare opportunity to go all out. Maybe his last one. In total, more than 500 genomes had gathered in 3 camps around Sarajevo. Normal humans couldn't survive Mekran's bioplague, nor stand against his machines, and so did not apply. Leonard flew over the camp, where everyone was gearing up for war. The plague doctor Stitch finished inoculating the soldiers with additional protections against bioplagues. The Cossack had put on his white, night-themed power armor, a cannon mounted on his right shoulder and a force field shield on the other. Kresnik and Kudlak, the werewolf siblings, had transformed into giant humanoid wolves the size of polar bears, one white, the other black. A Violet summoned war beasts from alien planets to serve as shock troops, while orange genomes transformed into beings of metal and stone. Alice was networking people near the camp's center, with Sidekick standing nearby to boost her power. A beautiful blonde woman with blue eyes, Alice was a powerful seer with the ability to create telepathic links between people upon touching them. Those she networked worked intuitively together like a hive mind. Much like Mekran's robot army formed a superorganism spread through countless bodies. Besides increasing teamwork, Pythia's power could also be used for precognitive purposes. The more people she networked with, the more she could anticipate the future. In many ways, she had been the driving force behind this alliance. Today's battle would be the culmination of her chess match with Mekran, and the heroes would be her pieces. Sidekick, meanwhile, was an average-looking youth with brown hair and amber eyes. He belonged to Shining Knight's group, being a white enhancing the power of other genomes so long as they remained within 10 meters of his person. The trio would soon be rejoined by Calculator, a genius with the ability to calculate probabilities to the point of precognition. Pythia, Calculator, and many other blue genomes had debated the plan of attack. From nuking Sarajevo to a guerrilla battle, everything had been considered. Leo didn't know what made them decide on a conventional invasion, besides mentions of a dead hand system, but he trusted their judgment. Some, like Pythia, were members of Leo's carnival. Others were hero warbands or vigilantes like the Cossack, who answered the call to war. Dynamis hadn't sent anyone, though they did provide equipment. They were too busy dealing with Augustus in Italy. The mere thought of his nemesis infuriated Leonard, reminding him of that dreadful day he returned to the Costa farm, only to find all its inhabitants murdered. He had sworn to bring their killer to justice, and once Mekran was dealt with, he would do exactly that. The Living Sun, though he disliked that nickname, landed near Alice, toning down his body heat to prevent her from catching fire. "Leonard," she said with a warm smile. Unlike the genomes making up the army, she dressed casually. "Ready? Like the day I was born." Even before the apocalypse, Leonard had been a full-time firefighter in the London Fire Brigade, quite ironic considering his main power. He liked to think he still put out fires threatening the innocents, even if some could shoot lightning from their eyes. "How much time do we have?" "Enough for one last speech, if you're up for it." She tried humor, but Leonard didn't hide his concern for his old ally. "You're sure you want to do this?" he asked her. "You have never networked so many people at once, even with help from Sidekick." "We can't outthink a combat AI without the use of powers," Pythia replied. "Mekran's armies are so effective because they fight as one. They have us outnumbered more than 1,000 to 1, even if we have superpowers on our side, we need all advantages possible. I'm just saying the risks are great." She often suffered from dangerous headaches when she directed a large group, and never won this big. "Unlike me, you still have a husband and son at home. It's precisely for them that I'm willing to risk everything." Leonard couldn't argue with that. As if on cue, the various fighters gathered around them. Most were veterans of a dozen battles, others were new recruits. Leonard noticed a few of his other teammates among them. The teleporter ace, a freckled young woman with long auburn hair, dressed like a rogue with high boots, a red coat, and feathered hat, and Mr. Wave, a creature of pure energy wavelengths held together in a fancy purple suit. Every set of eyes was on Leo. "I'm not one for speeches," the red genome declared. Shining Knight and Nidhogg were probably speaking with their troops miles away. So I will be short and to the point. This is it. This is the final battle. Mechren is exhausted. His facilities, those which we could locate, have been destroyed. His last genome lieutenant, Asmodeus, has been slain. He's low on troops, low on weapons, low on options. This is his last stand, and he knows it. The news should be a relief, for all of us have lost something to this madman. Family. Friends. Home. But as they say, a cornered rat will bite a cat, Ace mused, a few people chuckling among the audience. We know, you say that all the time. But this time, the rat may very well kill the cat, Leo rolled with the metaphor. At Pythia's behest, a light-manipulating genome projected the image of two massive war machines behind Leonard. Enormous satellites equipped with solar sails and enormous laser cannons. These are the Kujata and the Bahamut orbital satellites with the power to devastate entire countries, Leonard explained. Mechren's previous orbital weapons remained in low Earth orbit, where they could be destroyed. The new ones, though, will fly deep into space, and even I won't be able to reach them. In a few hours, maybe minutes, Mechren will attempt to launch them and wipe us all out. Whispers spread through the crowd, as the grim reality of the situation settled among them. I know some of you, myself included, were a bit apprehensive with the help we enlisted to wage this war. But this is not a battle between nations, or between heroes and villains. This is a battle between life and death. And more than ever, this is a battle against time. Our goals are twofold: to destroy these satellites before they can be activated, and to defeat Mechren once and for all. Over the past few months, we have methodically cut off his escape routes. Today, we fight to the death. Good, Cossack said, his tone dangerous. Mechren's death. Yes, Leonard agreed. Mechren surrendered his humanity long ago. He desires to destroy all that makes us human, to replace our hearts with metal, and our souls with technology. He is a despot who believes men should be his slaves because he only sees the worst in us. But he is wrong. The living sun raised his hand, the satellites beyond him collapsing in a flash of bright light. Humans are not slaves, he shouted. Mechren chose to see the worst, but we chose to see the best. That humans are capable of compassion, of art and kindness, of greatness. And together, we shall end this decade-long nightmare once and for all. Today, we take back our planet. His declaration was met with a cacophony of shouts and war cries. Immediately afterward, Leonard flew across the skies, followed by dozens of flyers. The Cossack's armor activated the powerful propellers in its back, a chrome humanoid flew by his will alone. The ground forces moved towards the shield aboard assault vehicles or carried by teleporters. Now, the moment of truth. Leonard flew above the clouds, facing the shield. He built up the energy inside his core, preparing to go supernova. And then, he set the world ablaze. His heart core unleashed a focused ray of light that burnt the skies. The ionized laser hit the crimson force field and the mountain supporting one of the pylons, melting the stone. The force field undulated like water as it took the blast, an unstoppable force facing an immovable object. And then, one of them gave up. The force field around Sarajevo shorted out, and Leo's beam vaporized the pylon supporting it. The blast continued its course towards the city, setting an entire street ablaze in a cataclysmic detonation. The shield collapsed all around the city, and Mechren's army woke up. Spherical drones instantly spread across the skies like a bug swarm, opening fire on the heroes with lasers. Holes opened all over the metal towers, revealing hundreds of beam turrets, while the robots and vehicles on the ground opened with an artillery bombardment. Leo's flying allies moved to intercept the drone swarm, while the fire genome recovered from his effort. While he could draw on an enormous power reserve, it needed time to replenish itself. With the shield down, the other groups moved to action. A flash of green light illuminated the darkness to the east, Nidhogg undergoing his transformation. The green genome metamorphosed into a colossal, kilometers-long serpent with human skulls for scales. The monster slithered towards the city, his venom melting stone while his own forces followed. Purple blinking lights popped up all over Sarajevo, as Ace teleported small groups across the city. Explosions shook Sarajevo to the west, the shining knight having entered the city. While no heavy hitter, the charismatic leader of men led her troops personally in battle, her heavy green armor shrugging lasers while she cut robots with her bright energy sword. Her contingent was by far the largest, providing almost half of the genomes participating. Most were the defenders of a democratic state rising from Germany's ashes, the new Republic of Bavaria. Mechren had destroyed their home once, and now they would see justice done. Having recovered, Leo flew into the city, followed by the Cossack and some caped fellow. Their allies had cleared a path ahead, engaging the drone swarms, but faced heavy resistance. The towers unleashed hundreds of lasers in all directions, cutting genomes and buildings alike, while artillery bombardments from the defensive turrets destroyed almost every ruined building still standing. And of course, Mr. Wave couldn't help but brag. The show-off had moved in the middle of a robot-crowded street, hands raised. "Can you feel fear, robots?" The robots had opened fire mid-speech, but lasers and bullets harmlessly phased through the red genome. "Because Mr. Wave feeds on tears." Mr. Wave vanished, his wavelength body turning into a deadly laser moving at light speed. Before Leo knew it, his teammate had carved a path through the robots, cutting the machines in half merely by moving through them. Meanwhile, the werewolf siblings were busy tearing apart a tank with their bear claws, leading a pack of monsters. The caped fellow charged at one of the metal towers and brought it down by going through it. The other flyers spread to support the ground forces, while Leonard and Cossack moved towards Mechren's fortress. The enormous base's walls opened, waves of jetpack-powered robots flying towards them armed with heavy rifles. They immediately fired a volley of black projectiles at the duo, forcing them to spread out. Though they moved slowly, the robots' bullets powered through any matter, absorbing anything close to them. Gravity rifles. Leonard had faced a few in previous engagements, and one had almost torn his core apart. He suspected Mechren had specifically designed the weapon to kill energy-based genomes like him. Leonard retaliated with plasma beams, while the Cossack hit the machines with his shoulder cannon. Both sides aimed with deadly accuracy and moved around with grace. The machines dodged with inhuman dexterity and reflexes, while the genomes had speed on their side. Guided by Pythia's network, Leonard entered some kind of trance, his body moving on its own. It was as if a primal instinct had taken over, shutting down his conscious mind and leaving only a battle program. He became no different than the machines he fought. No, Leo realized. He was different from these machines. Pythia's network let each individual keep their free will, yet allowed people from different backgrounds and who had nothing in common, to cooperate for a common cause. Their army was united in its diversity, while Mechren's machines were mindless copies, soulless slaves to a despot who considered free will as a disease, rather than something to be cherished. And at some point, Pythia's network began to outperform Mechren's robotic hive mind. Leonard hit one robot, then two, then three. The numbers kept climbing, but the genome's view had been reduced to blasts, black bullets, and burning metal. 50, 70. "When will they learn?" the Cossack asked, bombarding drones with his shoulder cannon. Leo assisted him with plasma blasts, the two wingmates coordinating their assault with perfect synchronization. Pythia's network even allowed them to hear each other over the explosions, as astonishing as it sounded. And yet, in spite of their impressive resistance, more robots kept coming. There was something terrifying in fighting these machines. Humans and animals could feel fear, fleeing lost battles, often hesitating before attacking, or attempted to communicate. But not Mecren's robots. They felt no remorse, didn't make a sound and never retreated. Leo fought an unrelenting tide of steel that just wanted him dead. Still, the battle seemed to be going well for them. The Shining Knights troops held the line on the western side, while Nidhogg had reached the city, toppling buildings and crushing a laser tower under his sheer weight. The corpses of Mecren's undead cyborgs were absorbed by the giant reptile on contact, regenerating his biomass lost to the enemy's energy weaponry. Once transformed, Nidhogg was almost unstoppable. A juggernaut fueled by death. His troops followed in his wake, genomes modified with cybernetic or biological implants, like Remoras supporting a larger shark. They mostly stuck to defending their leader from smaller drones threatening to swarm him. The plan was to have the reptilian titan destroy the defensive towers and then breach Mecren's fortress with his acid spit, though the rogue genius might have a trick up his sleeve. As it turned out, he had too. The red genome noticed movement near Mecren's fortress, holes opening inside the two circles making up the base's infinity shape. Two enormous rockets the size of skyscrapers emerged from the ground, flying towards the heavens at incredible speed. The Kujata and the Bahamut had been launched. Leo immediately raced after them, unleashing a plasma beam at the Kujata. A force field around the rocket negated his attack, and though it briefly shorted out, the two orbital weapons continued their ascent. If they get too far, Leonard couldn't finish his sentence, blasting a path through the flying robots. They weren't even fighting to win, but to delay. If, the Cossack replied with laconic wit, flying after the Kujata at full speed. The G-force involved would have crushed any normal pilot, but the vigilante powered through, catching up to the satellite. He was a man who believed in actions over words. Leonard pursued the Bahamut, intending to crash into it and bypass its force field, when a roar echoed from behind him. The red genome turned around, as a monster emerged from the fortress. The creature looked like some kind of biomechanical European dragon. The 10 meters tall reptile had wings similar to solar sails, its red scales mixed with black machinery covering the chest, the head, and the claws. Its yellow, reptilian eyes glared at the red genome, betraying a hint of intellect. What the hell was that, a biomechanical war machine? Leonard didn't have time to fight it, or the Bahamut may escape Earth's orbit. As if to answer his thoughts, the dragon pointed at Leonard with both its hands, the claws shining with crimson energy. A crushing force took over the living sun and forced him down. Much to his surprise, Leonard ended up crashing towards the ground, an invisible hand dragging him away from the Bahamut. Though he was more skilled with plasma and fire, Leonard could manipulate his own gravity. While he mostly used it to fly, he had learned a few other tricks. Manipulating his gravity field, he managed to collapse the effect, bringing him down, returning to the fight. What was that? Leonard asked out loud, pursuing the dragon. A gravity well? Gravity control, Pythia said as the dragon roared back. It's a red. Leonard thought he had misheard for a moment. What? But only humans. Until now. Mecren's power covered multi-agent systems, from artificial intelligences to nanotech constructs. His MO was to create AI dedicated to the creation of new technologies, allowing him to make breakthroughs in specialties outside his own. Mecren was the most dangerous kind of genius, the one who could make more. But to think he had uncovered the secret of elixirs. The rogue genius couldn't be allowed to escape. No matter what. Gathering up plasma in his core, Leonard fired a deadly beam at the creature. Though it moved at supersonic speed, the monster couldn't outspeed light. But as it turned out, it didn't need to. Instead, it turned its own gravity crushability on empty air, creating a miniature black hole the size of a fist. The phenomenon absorbed the dragon into itself before disappearing, the ion beam hitting nothing but air. Damn, did it use gravity to create a wormhole or something? Whatever the case, it had fulfilled its mission in delaying Leonard. The Cossack had somehow managed to bring down the Kujata, the satellite's wreckage crashing on Sarajevo's streets, but the behemoth had become a faint light point in the skies. Shit. 73% chance that the behemoth opens fire on Sarajevo once online, according to calculator, Pythia warned. Increasing by 1 point every 10 minutes. Had Mekran grown desperate enough to fire at his own base? It wasn't about winning anymore. Leonard turned towards the heavens, ready to pursue the satellite even into the dark reaches of space if needed when Pythia's voice interrupted him. No, don't. Hit the fortress and reach Mekran. Kill him before he pulls the switch. The odds are better. But the satellite will. Something worse is coming. Leonard froze. What do you mean? If his fortress isn't annihilated soon, Mekran will somehow kill everyone in Sarajevo, Pythia said, her composure breaking into genuine fear. Destroy the bunker at all costs. What's waiting for me inside? I don't know. Her words turned haunting. I only see black. It's all black. Leo braced himself for battle and flew at Mach speed through the fortress metal walls. Mekran was waiting, deep down. 41, past fragment, the darkness beyond. Where could Mekran be hiding? Smashing through blast doors and steel walls, Leonard Hargraves felt something wrong in the atmosphere. Space itself bending and twisting. Something created powerful magnetic fields inside the base, tearing apart the very fabric of reality. As he had thought, Mekran's fortress also counted as a particle accelerator. Did the genius activate it? For what purpose? How could it help repel the army at his door? Pythia, where do I go? Leonard asked, but he only heard psychic static. Whatever happened inside the fortress interfered with the telepathic contact. He was on his own. Leonard eventually made his way into the fortress collider, a closed circuit of steel inside which particles moved at an astonishing speed. A stream of unknown, blue energy raced through the superstructure, the red genome entering it like a fish swimming inside a river. He didn't identify the particles inside the collider, perhaps they were undiscovered by modern science, or not native to Earth's reality. Much to his surprise, Leo started to see things inside the stream. Bluish phantoms of strange, inhuman figures composed of raw data, blinking in and out of existence. These mirages never settled in one shape, constantly changing. What was going on? The living sun could tell the ambient energy focused in one place at the facility's center, the point where the two loops making up the infinity symbol joined. He followed the blue stream towards its endpoint, eventually crashing through more steel walls. The blue stream leaked out behind him, dispersing into fine particles. Leo's crash course ended at the very core of the fortress, a command center straight out of H.R. Geiger's nightmares. The entire room looked like a Gothic cathedral of steel, whose walls were alive, veins of metal coursed through them, pumping the building with thick black oil. The structure seemed capable of breathing, while coiled tin spines formed the pillars keeping the roof. Eye-like screens projected images of the battle outside, while loudspeakers screamed warnings. 6 giant, biomechanical brains the size of elephants formed a circle around a tiny blue spot floating in the midst of an energy pillar, the focal point of the entire superstructure. Each of the brains were protected from the outside world by reinforced glass tanks, and connected by thick wires. Leo guessed they were biomechanical supercomputers, housing the AIs piloting their master's entire war effort. Mekran was there, standing on a platform below the blue spot. The wizened old man wore nothing but simple white clothes and needed a black cane to walk. He was the only creature of flesh in this ghastly iron heart, giving orders to his AI servants in Bosnian. Transfer all data to the backup base. Mekran's voice sounded so calm, so small. So human. Activate all remaining units outside, and open the gate. Data transfer initiated. A robotic voice answered through loudspeakers. Warning, dimensional coordinates incomplete. High degree of instability expect. Don't care if we destroy Sarajevo. Open the gate. Mekran suddenly noticed Leonard, who had his palm raised at the man. Now that he could take a good look at the genius face, the living son realized that the battle had taken its toll on him too. Already past his 70s, Mekran seemed like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were blackened by fatigue, his hands shaking with stress. He looked so normal. He didn't wear a costume, nor was he a larger-than-life, charismatic Dark Lord. Mekran was a mere man, straight out of a retirement home, one who had killed millions, perhaps billions. And yet, he looked so very tired of it all. Broken by a decade of endless warfare. The living son's hand wavered. Make your shot count, Mekran said, glaring bitterly at Leonard. You won't get another. Instead of blasting him, Leonard Hargraves stared at the hateful dictator straight in the eyes. Are you happy, Mekran? He asked in Bosnian. The question took the genius aback. Are you happy living like this? Leonard asked. While he didn't unleash any plasma blast, he kept his hand raised. Pythia would flay him alive if she knew. Alone in a bunker, surrounded by machines, killing people left and right? Was that your wish? Are you happy living like this? The fortress shook, while the genius mulled the question over. He looked away, before focusing back on Leonard. No, Mekran admitted, sounding exhausted. No, I'm not. Then why won't you stop? Why do you care? The genius snapped back. Because I want to believe human life should be cherished. Even yours. I will kill you if I must, but call me naive. If there is the slightest chance of ending this by the book, I want to try it. Leonard paused, trying to find his words. I don't know what made you what you are, but you must realize deep down that hurting other people won't help. He did. Leonard could see it painted all over his face. Please surrender peacefully, the living son asked. Tell your machines to stand down, and we will give you a fair hearing. Nobody else has to die, not even you. You started this, and you can end it. Mekran's expression suddenly morphed from sadness to wrath. I didn't start anything, the man snarled, his voice dripping with venom. Anger bottled up for years roared to the surface. You did. The Serbians murdered my sons at Srebrenica, and you people just watched. If you want this war to end, then stop getting in my way. Leonard got his answer in the man's intense, hateful gaze. He would never stop. It didn't matter how many had to die to fuel the fire burning within him, it was an inferno that could never be extinguished. This bitter, hateful man would never stop until he had brought the whole world to its knees. A demon born of war. Leonard regretfully opened fire. A crimson force field activated around the rogue genius, deflecting a stream of plasma. Metal and electrical devices around Mekran melted, but the warlord remained completely unharmed. Similar fields protected the giant brains, protecting them from danger. Leonard flew towards the genius, intending to smash through the force field and end Mekran's life. A roar echoed at his left, a wormhole opening. The biomechanical dragon from last time emerged from it, claws raised at the living sun. A powerful gravitational force pushed Leonard against a steel wall, sending him crashing against mechanical panels. The dragon kept the gravitational force active, attempting to break the red genome's heart core apart. It could have been beautiful. A new Eden. Mekran's face twitched in anger. I could have eradicated diseases, solved world hunger, brought peace. Increased life expectancy, everything automated. Everything would have been perfect. The rogue genius raised his cane at Leonard, gritting his teeth in impotent rage. If it hadn't been for you, he hit the ground with his cane, his hands shaking. If it hadn't been for people like you, I could have saved the world. Look through your window, Mecrin. Leo replied angrily, trying to break free of the battle beast's gravitational field. You didn't save the world, you killed it. You're living among the dead. The genius visibly flinched, his fingers clenching around his cane. By now, he was so furious he couldn't make coherent sentences. If politicians had any imagination, I wouldn't have fed all the killing data. Had to make them stop. They never listened. Couldn't understand. Leonard ignored that maniac and blasted the biomechanical dragon with plasma. The creature's scales and flesh melted away, leaving only mechanical implants and seared bones. Yet astonishingly, it kept moving and didn't release the pressure. Meanwhile, the blue sphere started expanding inside the energy pillar, turning into some kind of energy lens. A spatial anomaly leading into a place of bright blue light. When Leonard looked at this reality tear, he felt something brush against his mind. He thought it was Pythia for a second, before realizing the telepathic signal came from the spatial anomaly. Images formed inside the living son's mind, like in the blue stream. Vivid pictures of his childhood in Hackney, surrounded by criminality, of his first day in the London Fire Department, helping a family evacuate from a burning building, of finding the strange box in the mail, and the crimson potion within, of the day he and Alice founded the carnival. What is this? Leonard asked, mesmerized by the portal and the images it sent him. Even the burned dragon stopped attacking, entranced by whatever power came from beyond this blue wormhole. The Akashic records, Mecrin muttered, his eyes widening in triumph. The universal compendium. All data, all information, all knowledge, all intent, and emotions, it all comes from this place. The source of blue powers, of all geniuses' knowledge, a blue world of pure intellect. Mecrin raised his cane at the portal, his fury replaced with excitement. It's all here. All the world's secrets, everything that can fix it. It's all here. He turned his back on the red genome, chuckling to himself. Even you must see its beauty. The mental stream of image continued, but instead of showing pictures of Leo's own life, they shifted to stranger sights. Of alien worlds covered in massive oceans, ruled by fish-like creatures, of supernovas illuminating the darkness of space. With it, I can begin again. Mecrin boasted. Fix everything. Once I get there, I will know everything. Leonard looked at the blue with divine fascination, until he spotted a tiny taint of blackness. The telepathic signal instantly ended, the pictures turning black. The screens in the facility turned red, and the loudspeakers changed their tune. Warning, anomaly detected. Warning, anomaly detected. Warning, unknown dimension converging. The blue hole seemed consumed from within by darkness. Black spots slowly grew from within the blue portal, tainting it entirely. The room seemed to freeze over, the temperature dropping at an alarming rate. Even Mecrin had no idea what was happening. It's not the blue world, it's somewhere else, it's... Within seconds, the blue star had turned into a black hole, a sphere of darkness from which no light could escape. It wasn't a door to a dimension of pure information, but one of void and nothingness. It's all black, Mecrin muttered, gazing into the abyss. And then... the abyss gazed back. A pulse of darkness erupted from the portal, vaporizing the dragon, the artificial brains, and most of the room. Mecrin barely had the time to scream as his force field vanished, and the void devoured him. Leonard felt the dragon's gravitational field disappear, only to have his own overwhelmed by darkness too. An alien force threatened to consume him, the way a black hole ate a star. Something was looking at them from the other side. The dark gaze was peeling Mecrin layer by layer, like an onion. Skin, flesh, bones, and then working its ways down. Within the seconds, the genius had been erased from existence, his atoms torn asunder and annihilated. Without his heart core keeping his body whole through a powerful gravitational field, Leonard would have suffered the same fate. Even now he felt the outer layers of his solar body disintegrating, its molecules annihilated into nothingness. The sustained gaze of this thing would tear him apart in minutes, destroying his heart core as it did with Mecrin. His human mind simply couldn't comprehend what he was looking at. A shape vaguely reminding Leo of an eye, surrounded by a cloud of dark, empty space, a sentient hole in reality, a living darkness that devoured light instead of being banished by it. A colossal entity, so powerful, so almighty, that it destroyed their reality simply by looking at it. And it was trying to get in. The black portal slowly widened, the radius of the baleful gaze increasing. The entity behind the gate kept looking, unaware, or perhaps uncaring, of the damage it caused. If the particle accelerator continued expanding the portal, Mecrin will somehow kill everyone in Sarajevo. As Pythia's words came to mind, Leonard immediately unleashed a stream of plasma at the portal. Flames as searing as a nuclear detonation. They quickly stopped to exist. They weren't absorbed by the hole or extinguished. They disappeared, leaving neither heat nor smoke behind. The dark force on the other side of the portal hadn't even noticed Leonard's counterattack, its mere presence erased his flames. Compared to this entity, the living sun looked like an ant trying to attack an elephant. If he couldn't destroy the portal directly, what could Leonard do? If he did nothing, this thing would erase him from existing within minutes, and then do the same with the fortress. The particle accelerator's destruction would probably cause the portal to implode, but Sarajevo would be wiped out. The particle accelerator's destruction. If Leonard could sufficiently damage the fortress, he could collapse the portal before it could grow larger. But the explosion needed, it might cost him his life. Leonard thought about the hundreds of people outside. Heroes fighting to make a difference in this bleak, devastated world. Friends like Pythia, with families at home, soldiers trying to rebuild a kind, democratic civilization. Good people. Leonard didn't hesitate. He gathered all his remaining energy, calling upon whatever power fueled his heart core, and caused his heart core to implode on itself. His body turned white, his radiance incinerating the room. The black hole absorbed most of the heat, but not all of it. As they say, he muttered, staring defiantly at the darkness beyond. Better to go out with a bang, rather than a whimper. His last thought towards his comrades outside, the living sun went supernova. Leonard's light consumed the world in a cataclysmic explosion, and the darkness returned from whence it came. Darkness. It was all darkness. A pitch-black nothingness. He couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't smell, couldn't taste. He could barely think. He felt cold. He felt numb. And more than anything, he felt alone. Was this death? Had the darkness beyond that portal been the afterlife? Or maybe it was all a hallucination, his brain's last hurrah before the final end? He had never truly believed in any god or afterlife. He thought he would just vanish, cease to exist. Compared to an eternity in the dark, it would have been a mercy. He had always lived through others, as far as he could remember. He might have looked like the sun, but he never felt warm when alone. So he had filled the void with his fellow human beings, their happiness becoming his own. Loneliness had always scared him more than death. Now, he was alone with his thoughts. Alone with his regrets. He would never have a wife, never have children. He hadn't written that urban fantasy book he always said he would. He would never return to London and see the people he left behind. He would never get to make up with certain friends, whom he had parted with on bad terms. He would never avenge the Costus or bring Augustus to justice. He would never know if his sacrifice had made a difference. So many things left unfinished. But he was okay with it. He had tried. He had done his best. He saw light in the darkness. He felt like driving a car to the end of a long tunnel, though he couldn't see what was beyond the exit. Was it heaven? Was it the last door? Were the Christians right, or the Muslims? The Hindus or the Buddhists? All of them, or none at all? He didn't know, but whatever awaited him beyond, he could live with it. He entered the light. Leonard opened his eyes. Instead of facing angels, he could only see a white ceiling. He had returned to his frail human form, though with some changes. His black skin was somehow hairless now, and all his muscles felt sore. His dark eyes struggled to adapt to the light, though he noticed two people looking over him. "Easy, Leo." The roguish teleporter Ace smiled down on her friend. "You come back from hell itself." "Good to see you awake, sir," Stitch said. This strange genome always wore a plague doctor outfit, to the point Leonard had never seen how he looked underneath. "You had us worried." Where, the living son's eyes acclimated enough to allow him to see. He seemed to be in some kind of hospital, laying on a bed and hooked to machinery. Clearly, death hadn't claimed him yet. "Visoko," Stitch answered. "A few dozen kilometers from Sarajevo. We evacuated here after the battle. We won." Ace beamed with happiness. "We won, Leo. We fucking won." "How long was I?" Leonard struggled to form words. His throat felt dry and sore. "How long was I out?" 3 days, Stitch answered. "And Mekran's fortress?" "It's all gone, a crater of molten steel and glass." Ace smiled at him, happy to see her friend alive. "You blew up that place good." "Truth be told, we believed that you had perished in the explosion," Stitch said dryly. "Me too," Leo replied with the same tone. "Sphere the size of a hand. It took days for your power to recreate your body, even with Sidekick's help. Sarajevo has been taken, though the city lies in ruins," Stitch explained. "Shining Knight and her group are busy destroying the last surviving robots, but the production factories have been dismantled. The genome wars have ended." It was the end. The words took a weight off Leonard's shoulder. He had originally co-founded the carnival with Pythia to fight dangerous genomes and help mankind recover from the wars. Mekran had been the greatest threat to all of humanity, and now he was gone. It had taken almost 10 years, but maybe mankind would finally rise back from the old world's ashes. And through some miracle, Leo had lived through it all. Maybe he should reconsider some of his beliefs. After having seen that creature beyond the portal and his near-death experience, he wondered if religions were onto something. Stitch cleared his throat. However, Leo repeated. "The Bahamut is now in orbit deep in space, far beyond our reach," the plague doctor said. "The Cossack tried to bring it down, even breaking half his bones from the G-force, but he wasn't fast enough." "Who cares?" Ace asked, far more optimistic. "There's no one left to activate it." "Some of Mekran's bases remain," Stitch replied with pessimism. "And while our foe and his allies are all dead, there's no guarantee nobody else could find a way to hack into the satellite. I believe we will live to regret that failure." "The evil that men do lives after them," Leonard quoted, looking back at the white, lifeless ceiling. Was the Bahamut looking down on them, far above their heads? "The good is oft interred with their bones." Was that from Shakespeare, sir? "I don't know," Leo admitted. I only ever memorized the famous quotes. I thought it would make me sound smarter. It doesn't, Ace chuckled, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something weighed on her mind. By the way, he's dead, right? As in, no last-minute escape, or a clone hidden somewhere. Mecrin is really dead? The memory of the genius disintegration flashed in Leonard's mind, much to his unease. Yes, he said grimly, though his allies let out a relieved sigh. He is dead for good, and I don't think he will come back from that. The memory still sent shivers down Leonard's spine. There had been no malice or benevolence in this entity's actions, only curiosity. That godlike being had simply noticed the breach and looked through, the same way a child did through a keyhole. Leo could have just easily switched places with Mecrin, had he been less lucky. No, he shouldn't think like that. He had been given a new chance at life, and he would spend it looking forward, rather than back. Though, if creatures so powerful were out there, waiting. How many casualties? Leonard asked, trying to fend off the existential dread with down-to-earth news. 1 out of 4, Stitch replied. It was a good day. Jessie died, Ace replied with a frown, much less optimistic. Her brother is heartbroken. I think he'll retire. The news saddened Leonard Hargraves. Due to regularly picking fights with the most dangerous genomes, the carnival experienced a lot of turnovers, losing people in almost every engagement. Leonard had buried far too many good people. Mr. Wave? Pythia? Mr. Wave is, well, you know him. He's boasting about his killer robot kill count to everyone who will listen. Ace's expression harshened. Pythia though. She glanced at another hospital bed, Leo following her gaze. His eyes widened in horror at what he found. Alice was in a bed near his own, heavily sedated and linked to intravenous medical devices. Her skin had turned pale as death, and her gaze was empty. Lifeless. Alice. Leonard attempted to rise from his bed but lacked the strength to lift himself up. Ace put a hand on his chest with a frown, to force him back to his bed. Shit. Hey, calm down, Ace said with a frown. You're still sick, and you can't do anything for her. She's been like this since the battle's end, sir, Stitch explained with clinical coldness. Her symptoms fit those of extreme brain damage. She overtaxed her power, Leo realized with sadness. He had warned her, but she had been willing to risk it all. Maybe she had always known it would end this way. The plague doctor nodded. Nidhogg could cure her if given time. He said that considering her pivotal role in today's victory, it was only natural he helped her recover. Leonard shivered. Considering the man's methods, we need to warn her husband and son. It's their choice, not ours. I already called them. Ace shook her head. Poor Matthias. Miss Martell left something for you, sir, Stitch handed Leonard a USB key. I apologize for the indiscretion, but we already took a look. What does it contain? Leonard asked with a frown. Precognitive analysis of the next few years, Stitch explained. Calculator and her compiled a database of the greatest threats to human civilization before the battle. I believed Pythia anticipated her fate and wished to help us beyond that point. I suppose Augustus is on the list? Leonard asked, his tone turning venomous. He had been given a second chance to see justice done, and he wouldn't waste it. Yes, Ace nodded, her expression turning grim. But someone else has taken the top spot. This surprised Leonard. Who could be more dangerous than an invincible, megalomaniacal warlord? Who? Some psycho called Bloodstream, Stitch explained. According to the data, there is a high chance that he will cause an extinction event in 2017 if not slain beforehand. Something about his daughter dying, I think, Ace added with a frown. You will have to wait for Augustus, Leo. That psycho comes with a time limit. Leonard looked at the USB key, wondering what grim prophecies it held. Bloodstream. 42, progress made. Genome parties were always fun, but the aftermath sucked. When he returned home to Jamie's place, Ryan found it in ruins. The floor had been buried underneath beer bottles, pizza boxes, trash, and stuff best left forgotten. Someone had drenched the sofa in a suspicious fluid, and while DJ Brain had survived the apocalypse, a partygoer drew a smiley face on the vat's surface. Even with repeated time stop, it was a struggle to clean up the mess. Ryan was still working on it by the evening. Faster, slave. Ryan's cruel taskmaster, Lanka, sat on a chair while he cleaned up the sofa with a mop. Ki-young's rats looked at the both of them, like viewers watching a comedy movie. I want to see this sofa shine enough to sit my ass upon. Do you want me to clean your royal butt too while I'm at it, Your Majesty? Ryan deadpanned. No, thank you, I already did my part, she replied. You're the one who skipped town all morning. You're just mad I was invited to the big guy's table, he mocked her back, before hearing his cell phone bleep in his pocket. He took a break from his dirty work to check a message from Jasmine. Jaslove, how do you want your armor? Ryan started typing his answer. Plushy Tamer, have you played Fallout? Jaslove, Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Tactics, or Van Buren? Plushy Tamer, you didn't mention Brotherhood of Steel. Jaslove, that game never existed, and I'll kill anyone who says otherwise. Plushy Tamer, good answer. Fallout 2, America for the Enclave. Jaslove, figured. You're going to look great killing muties. Plushy Tamer, you and I, and my big plasma cannon. Jaslove, keep it loaded. Might give it a good polish if you behave. You're texting your girlfriend during work, blabbermouth? Lanka said while looking over his shoulder, grinning upon seeing the sender. Wait, it's Vulcan's number. Jealous? Ryan asked before putting the cell phone in his pocket. I'm glad you didn't commit suicide by going after Livia, but Vulcan? Mad respect. She's totally going to shoot you one day, but your bravery shall be remembered. Technically, she already did shoot him. Well, I had to work for both of us, since you couldn't get a date. Lanka grinned, sipping a beer. Where do you think these fluids came from? Ryan looked at the sofa, then at the mop, and finally at Lanka, whose grin grew wider. You know what, I paid my debt to society, he said, tossing the mop at his flatmate's face. Clean your mess yourself. Hey, you lazy ass, get back here, she complained, trying to get the sticky mop off her face. Ryan ignored her, moving towards the stereo to unplug his brain in a jar. Ki-young's rats left for the kitchen and trailed a towel back to the sofa with their mouths, intending to clean it up themselves. Their mistress was still holed up in her room with her boyfriend, but she might emerge from their lair sometime soon. Jamie hadn't believed he had been promoted at first until Livia herself called him to confirm it. After a moment of silence, the swordsman had retired to his room with Ki-young to discuss it, but they had been alone for 3 hours by now. Ryan was pretty sure there wasn't a lot of talking involved in this private celebration. When Jamie and Ki-young returned to the living room, the rats had cleaned the sofa enough for Lanka to slouch on it. The couple was so close they were almost touching, and Chitter had recovered from yesterday's breakdown. In fact, she looked so happy that Ryan thought she might ascend to heaven on the spot. Something big happened, the courier said, as he separated the loudspeakers from the brain in a jar. I can tell. What's up? Lanka asked with an eyebrow raised. Besides changing your names to Mr. and Miss Mercury? Ki-young exchanged a glance with her man, who nodded slowly. Jamie finally proposed, she told Lanka, giddy with joy. Her friend blinked. No way. Congratulations. Ryan said with a thumb up, while the rats clapped with their tiny hands. You should tell everyone. And you accepted? Lanka asked Kyung a stupid question. Of course I said yes, she chuckled. I want you to be the bridesmaid, Lanka. Me? For the first time since Ryan met her, the ex-marauder looked speechless and flustered. But I don't know shit about weddings. You will do well, Kyung replied with a warm smile, though it wavered a little. Felix would have been Jamie's best man, but I don't think he will come. I will ask Mercury to be the best man, Jamie declared. I owe my whole life to him. If he hadn't raised me up, I would still be some piss-poor orphan selling scraps. Now. I will do my best to honor his name.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call you boss now, Lanka said with a wide grin. If anyone deserves that job, it's you, Jamie. I still can't believe it's happening, Zanbato replied, torn between joy, pride, and anxiety. He looked so adorable when unsure of himself. Me, a street rat, ascending to the rank of an Olympian? Becoming a capo regime? It's imposter syndrome, Ryan told the swordsman. It's like sanity, fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
I suppose, Jamie replied, though he clearly had a long way to go. Still, it's so big, beyond all the responsibilities, and sitting at the Olympians' table, I will have all the division's resources to call upon. Millions, billions in cash. You still plan to invest in soccer games? Lanka asked. We haven't had a national cup since the Genome Wars, Jamie replied, his voice brimming with passion. Dynamis keeps a tight grip on sports with their Dynacup, but the slums have so many talented people. Nobody will give them a chance but us. I'm sure one of them can be the new Maradona. You should give to charity, develop detox centers, hospitals, Kyung looked at Ryan. Even rebuild that orphanage the Meta gang trashed. You should start with all of Rust Town. Ryan shrugged. That place is the most miserable I've seen, and that includes radioactive wastelands. Much to his surprise, Jamie actually seemed to take his suggestion to heart. That's not a bad idea, he admitted, looking at Kyung. What do you think? You should know, she replied, before glancing at Ryan. You have seen the Olympians. Do you think they would mind? Ryan gave the question some thought. At the end of the day, Lightning but didn't seem to care about money. He only craved power and respect. As long as Jamie followed orders and didn't interfere with the other divisions, Augustus probably wouldn't give a damn if he used funds to create orphanages or charities. Neptune and Livia seemed more interested in developing the family's empire, and they would probably approve the initiative if only to develop goodwill. As for Mars and Venus, he didn't get much of a read on them. Bacchus, however. I think they would be open to the idea, Ryan admitted, with a caveat. As long as it doesn't interfere with the Bliss business. That was the real problem. The couple's mood instantly worsened, and they exchanged a silent glance. Ki-young didn't give up though. If you could talk to Livia about it. Moi? Ryan replied, a little surprised. She seems to hold you in high esteem, from what I've heard, Jamie said. News traveled fast. But be careful around her. She's the apple of her father's eye, and he doesn't take disrespect lightly. Don't worry, Vulcan got to him first, Lanka said, laughing when Ryan glared at her. You ratted me out. He glanced at the mice in the room. Sorry. Some of my best friends are tiny rodents. I had a feeling something would happen between you two, Ki-young smiled warmly. The tension was palpable. I'm so glad you found someone, Jamie declared, warmly putting a hand on Ryan's shoulder. I don't know if it will last, but I hope she can make you happy. Well, I will retire before you give me diabetes, the courier replied, carrying his brain in a jar to the garage. When he left the main room, the trio were discussing the wedding's date and logistics. Thankfully, the garage had been locked up during the party, and Ryan's car was spared from the guests' attention. If Lanka had used his back seat for her vile, sticky deed, the time traveler might have gone on a suicide run out of rage. 30 minutes later, the courier had plugged back the brain in its place. He opened the door and sat at the driver's seat, putting on the chrono radio. Instead of funny alternate universe songs, a faint voice came out of it. Hi, Riri. Ryan remained still, checked if the garage door was closed, and finally increased the sound. Len? Is that you? Why yes, it's me. I don't bother you? No, it's fine, I just had to confirm it. He had to ask since it was unlike her to make the first move. We haven't spoken for days. Yes. She stopped, not sure what to say. The awkwardness was almost palpable. Ryan decided to spare her further embarrassment. How are the kids? They're still getting used to the place, but they love it. We played games. Board games. She marked a short pause, trying to find her words. Sarah said you would love them. Are you inviting me? Maybe. Well, that was a big leap forward. Maybe their friendship wasn't wrecked beyond repair, or the kid's presence helped Len recover from her self-imposed isolation. Vulcan contacted me about the Meta Gang. Len changed the subject. I think you should know. I followed their submarine to a hidden tunnel, leading below the city. Towards the bunker. Ryan put his hands on the wheel. Have you told Vulcan? No, I thought I should tell you first. Riri, is this true what I heard on the news? You attacked Dynamis with Vulcan? To borrow one of their suits, Ryan replied, putting his hands on the warm, soft cashmere sleeves. It was a date, sort of. Len didn't answer. The line turned into static, with Ryan wondering if she was shocked, sad, or just lost the connection. Shorty? I'm happy for you. She's better than the others. Another pause. You deserve to find happiness. Something in her voice broke Ryan's heart. Shorty? Does she know? No, I didn't tell her. He glanced out of the window and at the garage's cold walls. It always ends the same way. While he genuinely enjoyed Jasmine's company, Ryan wouldn't hesitate to stand against the Augusti to achieve his perfect run. Though she didn't seem loyal to Augustus, Vulcan also had a fiery temper, enough to try murdering the courier in a previous loop. In spite of his best intentions, they might end up on opposite sides. And almost all his relationships ended up undone at the end of a loop. Getting too attached would only make the inevitable end more heartbreaking. I see, Len said, clearing her throat. But maybe not this time. Ryan's head perked up in interest. You've found a solution? I think so, she said, before asking him questions. You create your time stop by aligning your two selves, right? So for the 10 seconds duration, both time periods interact. I see where this is going, the courier said, his mood deflating. I've thought of using that period to send stuff in the past, but you can't send anything physical. Even cats. I've checked. Physical time travel seemed to break some of the underlying laws of their universe, even by genome standards. Or if it could be done, you needed a unique, undiscovered violet power that Ryan couldn't replicate. But you can send signals. Information, like the chrono radio does. What are you getting at, Shorty? Psyshock, he can overwrite minds, even transfer his own, without physically changing the brain. he alters the brain waves and neural signals. Ergo, the physical storing space matters less than all the electrical reactions taking place every second. If we make a snapshot and send that information back to a perfectly compatible vessel, like their own nervous system. Ryan pondered her words. You want to send someone's consciousness back in time. The way you do, yes. It's a good idea, but besides the fact brains aren't exactly your area of expertise, how do you plan to copy a whole human mind, guide it through a temporal anomaly, and then have it transferred to their past self? A human brain had more than 1 million billion connections, collectively sending a quadrillion signals per second. Yes, she let out a sigh. I can only do one small part of the design, the navigation to guide the signal through the anomaly. You will need resources. I don't have to complete it. Other geniuses, more processing power. More time to figure it out. Of that, Ryan had aplenty. But you think it can be done? I can upgrade your chronoradio to send signals back to a target, she said. I already wrote the design down. I can send the plans to you. It's not that different from communicating through water or in hostile environments. It's harder. But it can be done. Do you think it can be completed in this loop? Ryan asked. Before everyone forgets? Len's silence was an answer all of its own. There, she cleared her throat. There's one place that may have the tech. Mekran's bunker. The metagang will be there. With their current resources and intel, Ryan doubted he could defeat all the psychos in the base. He still hadn't figured out a way to get rid of Frank in particular, and Hannafat Lecter would certainly use hostages like last time. I can help, Len argued. You helped me defend the orphanage, so the least I can do is return the favor. If you die in front of me again, I can take care of myself, she replied with annoyance, before noticing something. Again? Ryan didn't respond. His thoughts turned to his dynamis loop, and how acid rain had blown them up to Kingdom Come. Maybe you can ask the Augusti? Len proposed, running out of solutions. Ryan hesitated, considering the odds, before reaching a decision. No, he said. No, absolutely not. And after seeing lightning but in the flesh, Ryan couldn't give him access to Mekran's armory. The organization had good members, but the man at the top was a colossal dick. If he found Mekran's technology, Augustus would probably use it to sow death. He barely resisted the urge to kill with his current resources, and Mekran's weapons would only make him nastier. I don't like them, but once you have the design, I will have to restart afterward to avoid a disaster, Ryan replied, and you will forget me again. Don't think about me, Riri. Another pause. I don't want to be a burden. Not again, was left unsaid. Ryan sighed. Just give me time to figure it out, he pleaded. Maybe Vulcan's armor would boost his power, or a better option might present itself. Don't say anything about the meta or the bunker yet. All right. I'm here if you need anything. Thanks, Shorty. Len didn't answer. Instead, the chronoradio put on some melodramatic cyberpunk tunes. Len didn't fully understand the responsibility on Ryan's shoulder. He could spare everyone, find the perfect scenario with the best results. If he saved while on a suboptimal route, even to preserve their friendship, then all the consequences would be on him. Lives taken would be forever lost. The time traveler would have no excuse since he could have preserved them, had he tried hard enough. And after giving the present situation some thought, Ryan had to admit the truth to himself. This loop was good. Very good. But it wouldn't be perfect. 43. The Ghost of Drug Island. Sitting around Vulcan's workbench in the depths of her lair, two genomes brainstormed around a sketch. For the past hour, they had struggled to solve one of the world's most important questions, some would say, the only question worth answering. How many guns could you fit into one power armor? It'll be better with rocket launchers, Ryan said, discussing his armor's design. Vulcan had chosen a design that fit the courier's body rather than an enormous mech, an exoskeleton rather than a tank. 2 hidden switchblades below the arms, a big chest blaster, mounted turrets. The goal is to increase your power, not blow up half of Rome, Jasmine told him with a grin. Personally, I can settle for the Dynamis HQ. In that case, you will need a bigger laser. Vulcan scribbled on the design. Nuclear powered. Let's call it the Chernobyl, Ryan said with a deadpan face. You think some of their genomes might survive it? Yes, but they will become radioactive. If the laser doesn't kill them, cancer will. Ryan looked at Jasmine with absolute respect. So cruel, it becomes art. I know, she replied. Now that I think of it, I could actually design a cancer ray. That would be fucking nasty. It was such a fun date, spending quality time with his girlfriend designing weapons of mass destruction. Then again, the courier had spent most of the weekend at Jasmine's place, so the two had grown more familiar with each other. Jamie was too busy dealing with his new promotion, and while Dynamis hadn't yet delivered on its promised retaliations, Vulcan had all but ordered Ryan to lay low for a while. Well, as best as someone like the courier could. If your theory is correct and all true genomes produce a red flux variant, then it should be possible to contain this hypothetical energy, even if we can't observe it. Jasmine brainstormed out loud while looking at the ceiling, both feet on the workbench. I mean, your plushie keeps a creature from this violet dimension sealed from what you told me. I wouldn't say sealed is the best term. Doesn't matter, it can still contain it and prevent its energy from leaking out, Jasmine interrupted him. If we combine both our technologies, then we could design something keeping this hypothetical violet flux energy inside you. Instead of dispersing the heat, we'll ramp it up. And in theory, this would increase the energy his power would be able to access. I love it when you talk dirty. I'm so fucking excited about this, Ryan. Jasmine was trembling from impatience. Much like Len and all geniuses Ryan had met, she felt happiest when doing mad science. We're going to discover the source of powers, change the whole world. Scratch that, we'll own it. If you could, would you change your power? Ryan asked innocently. Trade it for something else?
Nah.
I'm pretty glad to have mine. Hell, I wish I got it earlier, though I wonder how much my state of mind back then affected my power. Jasmine glanced at him strangely. You? Ryan sighed. I dunno, he admitted. I've hated and loved my power in equal measures, but now, it's just part of who I am. I can't imagine myself without it. I get it, Vulcan replied, though frowning. You're a pretty private guy, you know that? Do you want to know my secret identity? You're asking me questions you don't want to ask yourself, and I don't like that, Jasmine replied. I ain't your psychiatrist, Ryan. In the end, everyone is on their own. I know, Ryan replied, his mood turning sour. But it would be nice to be able to count on someone else long term. Close your eyes peacefully, knowing someone has got your back for life? I thought I had that once. Didn't work out. Jasmine pointed at her mech with her chin. The only things you can count on are those you made yourself.
Yeah.
Ryan felt the same way about his car. Do you know of the hedgehog's dilemma? What's that, a pet disease? 2 hedgehogs seek to move closer and share heat during cold weather, but they cannot avoid hurting one another with their spines. They want to snuggle, but that would mean lowering their guard. Jasmine quickly caught on. Are you the hedgehog, or am I? We both are. Well, that's fucking pessimistic, Jasmine replied. It's experience talking. Truth was, Ryan sincerely hoped that Jasmine's armor technology would produce results, that somehow, things would be different this time. Maybe he was a fool, but the courier would never stop believing things could improve. He faced deadlines though. Though he had lost many men, Hannafat Lecter was still toiling inside Mekrin's bunker, and Ryan didn't see any way to evict him without casualties or revealing the base's existence. The best solution he had found was to recruit Shroud to invade the bunker, but the glass manipulator refused to move without his team's support, and Leo Hargraves wouldn't hit New Rome until next week. It could have happened differently, Ryan said. What? Your power, the courier said. It's not just the potion. It's part you, part random. His girlfriend frowned. What do you mean? If you give 2 different red elixirs to one person in the same circumstances, he won't get the same ability. If you give the same elixir to one person while he's afraid for his life or feeling safe, he will get a different power, though within the colors classification. Same if he's healthy, poisoned, or irradiated. You can't repeat an experience in the exact same circumstances, Jasmine replied, skeptical. Ryan could, and he did. At one point, the courier thought he might eventually find a way to replicate his power, but while he had learned a great deal about elixirs, he also learned it couldn't be done. Jasmine moved from her seat, grabbed a water bottle, and sat on Ryan's lap as if she owned the place. He responded by putting his arms around her waist. She was warm to the touch. But if I humor your theory, she said, putting her back against his chest, what you're saying is, if someone had gotten my elixir, they wouldn't have become a weapon genius? Ryan shook his head. And if you had received my elixir, you wouldn't have gotten my power. The elixir partly adapts itself to the person drinking it. And once the unique power has been assigned, nobody else can get the exact same one as yours. That was only true for the original elixirs though. Makes sense. Augustus probably managed to use 2 without going crazy due to a unique genetic quirk, according to Dynami's research. Jasmine rested her head on his shoulder, her face thoughtful. How did you get yours? A friend found it among a batch of 3. I took mine while trying to get out of a hopeless situation. The real tragedy was Len though. Shorty had won a power she would have loved under normal circumstances, but one that couldn't grant her dearest wish. And you, darling? Stole it while trying to flee Libya, Jasmine said with a scowl. If you think Italy was a shithole during the wars, then you haven't seen my homeland. Now Dynamis owns the oil field, and nobody controls anything else. It's all tribes and marauders killing each other. Can't be worse than Monaco. She raised an eyebrow, a little curious. What's up in Monaco? Trust me. Ryan looked at her seriously. No matter how desperate things get, don't go to Monaco. She chuckled at his confusing words. Comb my hair. What? Why? Because I ask you to, minion. Ryan chuckled playfully, raising Jasmine's hair and assembling it into a bun. The courier looked at the neural interface below them with interest. Can you make a second one of these? Sure, she said. I've got to admit it though, it's not really my tech. It's Dynami's. Dynami's? Hector has a decade-long project about downloading minds in new bodies to achieve immortality. Scan a whole brain and transfer it into someone else's. I guess the man doesn't want his sons to inherit anytime soon. I always knew corporations would eventually find a way to trademark humanity. They can't, even if Hector would do that if he could. A brain is a complex thing, and it's double the complexity when you're a genome. So they need cloned bodies, which their creepy Dr. Tyranno can provide. Jasmine shrugged, before sipping from her water bottle. That machine-human brain interface was one of their milestones. I'm not sure how far they have gotten since I left. And you managed to remake that device from memory? While I'm a weapon genius, I'm also a genius, period. Jasmine was too modest to boast. That's why I'm interested in your chronoradio's brain interface. My human reaction time can't entirely keep up with my armor while I use manual controls, but with a perfect interface. A question crossed my mind, Ryan said. What happens if we each wear an interface connected to the other's brain, and then do child-unfriendly stuff? She looked at him with a sly smirk, lightly kissing him. We'll have to try for research purposes, the genius said, before tossing her empty bottle away. Her boyfriend froze time to put it in the trash can. But that will wait for later. It's almost time to go to Ischia Island. Do you think my cashmere suit will protect me from the radiation? No, she smirked at him. But my mech will. A true winning team. Today was the Ischia Island Defense Perimeter inspection, and while he wouldn't be allowed inside the super lab itself, Narcinia had asked that Ryan come to visit. She probably felt quite lonely on that island. Strangely though, Livia had given her permission and asked Vulcan to bring extra muscle. I still don't get why the princess wants you to come, no offense, Jasmine said. I don't get her either, Ryan admitted. He had the feeling Livia had her own agenda and played with her cards close to her chest. Curiosity about how their powers interacted couldn't explain everything about her behavior. Do you know what her power is? Vulcan shook her head. She keeps it under wraps. All I know is that she's a pseudo-precognitive who can interact with alternate universes, but she doesn't advertise. Considering Ryan intended to destroy the island to settle his deal with Mr. See-Through, she didn't see very far. Vulcan hadn't received any tactical advice or warning in the loops where the junkyard raid went wrong either. Either Livia lied about her abilities, or she had some harsh limitations. This inspection is a waste of time, Jasmine vented off. That super lab is almost as well defended as this armory, and my place isn't haunted. You would need an army to bring it down. Challenge accepted. And if Dynamis truly had a brain uploading project, Ryan would need to pay them a visit too. Len had already sent him the design of her communications system, though it was the equivalent of receiving a car's computerized parts while missing the engine, the wheels, and everything else. Now that he had seen Vulcan's armor design, Ryan had memorized it. If he could combine Len's tech with Jasmine's, hook it up with the chronoradio, and steal whatever brain scan Dynamis had available, maybe he wouldn't be alone anymore. For the first time in a long while, Ryan felt hope. The island of Ischia used to be a paradise once. A beautiful resort in the middle of Naples Bay, where tourists from all of Europe came to enjoy its thermal sources and fresh air. Somewhere along the way, the fabled paradise had turned into a hellhole. Ryan didn't know why Mecrin had bombed this island, but he had done a pretty good job of it. Even more than 15 years after the deed, a purple miasma covered most of the area, a plague so toxic it had killed every life form there. Plants, animals, humans. The substance's toxicity and radioactivity had transformed the island into a graveyard. Thick iron walls equipped with wind turbines circled Ischia's coast, perhaps to prevent the miasma from reaching the mainland. The only part of the island with any sign of life whatsoever was the Castello Aragonese, a pre-Christ fortress. Built on a volcanic islet, the castle was connected to the island by a stone bridge, shattered yet never rebuilt. In stark contrast with the rest of the island, the castle's outer layers housed plant life, overgrowth, and crimson, alien flowers formed a ring around the fortress. Vulcan had spared no expense on the defenses either. Unmanned turrets covered the ancient stone walls, alongside automated anti-air defenses. Muxin power armor kept watch over the facility, equipped with flamethrowers, miniguns, and rocket launchers. Ryan would need to do a suicide run to get past the perimeter. The Castello Aragonese had seen many masters come and go since its construction, from the Romans to the Kingdom of Naples. But the Augusti were the first to turn it into a drug lab. After she landed her mech on the outer wall, unbothered by the defenses, Ryan stepped out of it. Much to his surprise, the air was breathable, probably thanks to the mutant plants surrounding the lab. He found Livia waiting nearby, looking at the Mediterranean Sea with longing. Sparrow and Mortimer acted as her bodyguards. "Quick save, Vulcan, welcome," Livia politely greeted the newcomers, while Vulcan emerged from her suit. Armored soldiers immediately checked on Ryan, in case he had smuggled anything dangerous on the island. Well, more dangerous than usual. "I appreciate your punctuality. We had to be in time for the group visit," Ryan deadpanned. "The poor Mortimer didn't get any free candy at the end," Mortimer complained. "I'm afraid you will not be allowed inside, Quick save," said Livia. "The inner workings of this facility are top secret for all but our elite members. Instead, you will stay outside and assist the staff in case we are attacked." "Can't I get a meth cook internship?" the courier asked. "No, but I'm sure Narcinia will show you the gardens when we are done," Livia replied, before speaking to an empty spot. "Geist, please, don't be shy." A freezing wind blew on the outer walls, while a yellow, ectoplasmic skull the size of a house manifested above the group. A swirling vortex of colored dust and eldritch energies surrounded the leering apparition. "Hi, guys." But the ghost's small, casual voice was completely at odds with his sinister appearance. Nobody had reacted with shock either, perhaps because they lived in a world with far weirder things. "Somebody call the Ghostbusters," Ryan said. "We've got a ghost problem." "I'm Francois," the enormous skull replied casually. "Or Geist." "I prefer Casper the Ghost," Ryan said, Jasmine chuckling. "Also, your name is Francois, but you use a German nickname? You aren't one of these self-hating Frenchmen, right?" "I thought about using the Spectre, but James Bond got there first." "Your whole existence has a lot of terrible implications," Vulcan said. "Namely, it means there's a freaking afterlife." Personally, Ryan thought it was simply yellow elixirs being weird, but Casper seemed to agree with her. "Heaven is all yellow and golden, though I only got a glimpse," the ghost said. "I've been trying to get back in there, but so far, the gates are barred. Hopefully, Father Torque will manage to exorcise me." "Have you tried suicide?" Ryan suggested. "I know it's not very Catholic, but maybe you can possess a corpse and then kill yourself again? If you try often enough, maybe it will stick." "I tried everything." "Fire? Ropes? Nuclear detonation?" The skull said nothing for a second. "Haven't done the last one," he admitted. "You won't," Livia said, her tone suddenly serious. "I won't allow it." "The worst death is fire though," Casper the Ghost argued, the skull shuddering. "Cooked meat is so painful, it makes you a vegetarian." "The rope is the best suicide method, by far," Ryan said. "It's painful, but if you do it the right way, it gets weirdly enjoyable. Takes a lot of trying to get the handle on it though." "Only one suicide attempt out of 3 succeeds," Mortimer said with a morbid tone. "I feel so bad for the other 2. "Mortimer, don't encourage them," Sparrow chastised him. "Geist, please be on the lookout for invaders," Livia declared, her voice silencing everyone. "The odds aren't good today. I can perceive alternate realities from my point of view, but a lot of them have become dark lately." "Dark as in, you switched out the lights?" Jasmine deadpanned. "Dark as in, I died in them." She said that with the same detachment as Quick Save himself. "So fast I didn't see the cause." "Well, that's ominous," Ryan said. "I'll say it again," Vulcan brushed it off. "Attacking this place is assisted suicide, princess. We will put that boast to the test." Livia smiled before looking at Quick Save. "We will meet again later." Jasmine followed the Augusti princess and her bodyguards as they walked inside the facility, leaving Ryan and Casper outside. The courier looked at the sea, a simple question on his mind. How could he blow this island up?